Well, happy birthday to me. 57, which means I'm really 12, which is perfect. I said today to one of my friends, so I get to relive with the knowledge that I have today from 12 on. I'm signing up. I'm signing up to be the new Therese, so it's grateful. I don't think I'd want to be anywhere else, Rose. Reverend Rose? So last week, Reverend Rose talked with you about beyond religion. How many of you did she afflict? How many of you went home and thought differently? Because that's our jobs. I know some people forget that, so I'm the reminder here. Our job is to comfort the afflicted and afflict the comfortable. I probably do that better than some. Afflict. So, what do you think about religion and how it settles with you? And I've talked with you about religion also being BS, which is your belief system, right? Have you thought about how much you think about or believe or have opinions about and where all that came from? Or do you just have it because it is what you have? They say that religion and the religious are because they go to church and they do the things that they do because they don't want to go to hell. And those of us who are spiritual who have already been to hell, right? And I haven't been yet today. I'm grateful. Because hell is where? In our minds. It's a state of consciousness. It's not a destination. It's not a geographical location. And you have to be careful who you talk about that with because I don't want to offend my friends who are religious, even though I know they're really spiritual. I had a friend tell me this week, God makes us broken so we can be in relationship with each other. Okay. It's not what I believe, but it's what helped her get through a situation she needed to get through this week. All right, so it works for her. My job is not to then interpret and I'm going to try to move my hair I was going to wear it up and I did not. So that we don't change how someone's living. It's just wanting to be there and supporting them. And at another time, then I'll afflict her with, maybe we need to think about that differently. So Reverend Rose talked last week about taste and see that God is good from Psalms. And when Psalms were written, and how the early church practiced Psalms was they sang them over and over and over. And they're really songs of gratitude. Because we know when we sing, we pray twice. So we're pretty prayed in this morning, aren't we? Thank you for stepping up and letting us be heard through our words. And it doesn't matter how big the band is. It's the intention with which we say the words and we sing. Beautiful. Another quote that Reverend Rose used last week was from John Sloat. I am now convinced that organized religion is not the truth in our search for God. Rather, it's a grammar school of faith, an important stage in our spiritual education, one from which we must eventually graduate. And we hope every week when you come here that that's what's happening. It's like, just made it through another class, yay me. Graduating consciously with our consciousness continuously raising itself. When we were trying to figure out what the title of the talk should be or what I should even talk about, we were saying, how about beyond the beyond? And it felt like Star Trek or Star Wars or something like that. And Reverend Rose said that she ended her talk with, stand poised now on the threshold. We are standing on the threshold of a spiritual frontier. It's quite exciting. And it fits, certainly doesn't it, because we're in this space area where my AT&T doesn't really work really well. And I keep saying, well, it must be NASA. They're interfering. It makes people think as opposed to whatever's happening really with AT&T. And then Dalai Lama celebrated his 80th birthday and asked that we would repost his postings, that we would be who he has been for us. which is kindness and love. Would it be okay if everybody was just kindness and love in your life? And that every time you had a thought or you were going to respond, that you were coming from kindness and love? That's my commitment to myself this year. Can I breathe and then respond versus react? That means I've got to get all my Irishness out of the way. And then respond with kindness or love or compassion. So I have a question. When you look in the mirror in the morning, what do you see? Leslie says her grandmother. All right. So beyond the physical, do you see that you are, in fact, a divine set of consciousness, a divine being? Or do you see yourself as a physical person having a spiritual experience? I'm hoping that after today that you'll always look in the mirror or even look in someone else's eyes in the reflection. Know that you're only ever seeing your divinity. It's going to be interesting, isn't it, when you meet that person in the express lane at Publix and they have more than 10 items. Because everybody we meet is just ourselves. This is this concept about being the vessel for spirit. Being spirit's vessel. How do we do that and stay centered no matter what's happening in the world? It's about our consciousness. And I point like it's up here, but that's where our brain is, right? And our small m mind. But it's the total being of us that is our consciousness. One of the things I've learned for the first time this year, it's not that I didn't know it, I just never knew it, was there's not right or wrong, good or bad. And those are 4 boxes that I've been keeping myself in, especially as a minister. So how often do you do, oh, I can't do that, that's not right, that's not wrong. You know, this morning as I was putting my birthday greetings on at 4:44, because of course the Spirit woke me up quite early this morning. And I'm thinking, I know, I can just hear my sisters, I'm going to see them next week, they're going to be like, you're so full of yourself when you post those things on Facebook. Right, I am, because if I don't get full of myself, who's going to fill me up? And it's coming from spirit, not from ego. Everything that we say, I am the heart, I am the hands. Everything that follows I am states the truth of who you are. The attention, right? So it's intention for I, A is attention, and M is manifestation. I am. Big words, and they state the truth of who you are. So I hope what you'll take away as you realize you're standing on the frontier of this new set of consciousness thoughts that are happening within you, that in fact you are one with God. And so you'll see in days gone by, people will be like, we are this close. But really, this is it. I'm one with God. God and I are this close. I say that about Tom. I say it about, since I've seen you, one of my friends made her transition, so she and I are like this. Especially when those times come where you're thinking, oh, I feel a little separated, right? You get kind of cranky or whatever. It's too hot or it's too cold or whatever. So there's 4 tools that we use in metaphysics in unity. Why me, by me, through me, and as me. And there's 4 because 4 is a foundational number, right? So by me, or why me is the first one. Why me? You know, can't you just, the shoulders droop, and you know, the why part brings us into victimhood. Why is this happening again? And so we ask you to shift and say, what am I supposed to be learning from this? So there's why me, then by me. So I'm a metaphysician, and I know that through my consciousness, I can make things happen. Good. Then we start shifting into another level of consciousness, which is through me. Mystics very much are like this. God within me does the work. Right? Wouldn't we agree that is what we teach in Unity? And yet we can bump it up one more level and say, God as me. That's when we're in vessel consciousness. It makes us think about if we're going to be critical of the person with 18 items in the 10-item checkout lane, or you might say, well, they may not know how to count, or maybe they just don't know what's happening, or they're in a rush or something. I got to grand sit with my 18-year-old grandson this weekend. He needs a little supervision for no parties. And so Nana and Tyler were out, and he's studying, and he's going to graduate next year with an associate's degree from high school. And we have these great conversations about all sorts of things. But I was saying, what do you think about God being as you? And he goes, oh, I don't think that's a good representation of God, Nana. Clarity is good, right? And he said, I don't really think about God much. I said, okay, so that'll be my role in your life, because it's not something that's been part of his life yet. And then he asked me, he said, so is this why you're able to... He had to talk about Grandpa Lee, and he only met Grandpa Lee twice before Grandpa Lee got his angel wings. And he said, so is this why you've been able to live through it? And his eyes teared up. We were at dinner the other night. And I said, yes, because if I didn't know the truth of who I am, how do we live? How do we go forward? So, are you living in your state of why me, by me, through me, or as me? Wherever you are is perfect. And then step up as you're able. Take the classes that are happening here, before church, after church, during the week. There's a women's gathering yesterday that I missed. There's many things that we can do to continuously upgrade our consciousness. And then when you see that bumper sticker that says, up your consciousness, you're going to laugh at it. Because you're going to be like, yes, as opposed to up your consciousness. Because you have to be aware of where you put the emphasis on which syllable. Do you realize that you are transcendent and eminent in the same moment? We always say that about God, as if God was out here. But we are as well. We're having this human experience in this vessel called the body, and then we have the vessel of consciousness. So always raising ourselves up to be higher, beyond the dogma, beyond the whatever it is that's supposed to be right or wrong that you learned as a child. There's a great saying I saw on a church sign this week, and it's been around for a long time. It says, I'd rather have a mind opened by wonder than one closed by belief. And we're getting lots of opportunities in life, aren't we? To accept people for who they are and as they are. How close do you live to knowing that there's no separation between you and all that's great and all that's good, which is really then all that's God? And I had a huge aha, and I texted something to Reverend Rose, because it made me realize then everything in my life is to support me, which means it's all good. So then when I look at my 42-year-old friend who just made her transition and I can't see the good in it, like what? She's 42, what? I get it's her soul's journey, but what, right? Don't we have all of those? And I wailed and cried and I've done all of that. But there was a shift in me as I was writing this and realizing, wait, if she's the vessel of God and I'm a vessel of God, her vessel needed to go somewhere else. So it got colon cancer, and it had to go. Doesn't mean she's not here. So the shift is, wait, so then I get to pick up in her footsteps maybe in places that she was serving or how she was doing things. But the major shift was, oh, so everything is to support me. So I don't get to be in the why me ever. And when I do, snap right back out of it and get into the what as me. So it allows us to get beyond the religion part of the dogma of we're supposed to do this and not, I was also raised Catholic like Reverend Rose was, so, don't eat meat on Friday and eat those filet of fish at McDonald's. Yeah, for what? That's not in the Bible. None of that is in the Bible. So if the Bible is your textbook, and that's what I'll say to people, well, there was no apple at the time when they say that Eve ate an apple. It wasn't created yet. That really stops a conversation. Two other ways we can get in touch with how it is we're going to be the vessel is through our emotional intelligence and our spiritual intelligence. We have an IQ, right? And we have a PQ, which is the physical. And they always thought and they always taught that if you had a huge IQ, you'd be great. Well, then they tried to put some of those really, really smart people into working relationships, and it didn't work. So EQ was developed, and then from there, it's been spiritual intelligence. Emotional is about understanding our own emotions, managing them, and then noticing someone else's, not managing theirs, and when necessary, help them shift. We only ever manage ourselves. Now for me, because I'm control gifted, sometimes I get a little challenged with that. It's like, I'm just going to help this person. And no, Therese, step back. Get thee behind me, right? And then spiritual intelligence is about our worldview. Cindy Wigglesworth is the author and the developer of this great new assessment, and it's been around since 97. And she says that her definition of love is a two-winged bird. The first wing is compassion, and the second is wisdom. Wisdom and compassion equal love. And if we came from love consciousness all the time, then we know that our wisdom would be engaged, and so would our compassion. And then we're able to tolerate. Only until we realize, oh wait, we're just tolerating. And then we're going to be inclusive, but maybe not so much. So then how about we just love? So even though the words come to us, we still have to go back into what they really mean, unpack them, and feel like, okay, well, I said I was inclusive, right, but are you lovingly inclusive? And so we get to challenge ourselves all the time with that. One of the books I've been rereading is called It's All God by Walter Starkey. He was a Reverend, a Unity minister. And he's hysterical, first of all. And he said the one word that he uses is remind me. Remind. So I get to change my mind as my consciousness awakens, or I'm in the presence of somebody else whose consciousness then calls me higher. He says, be spiritual even in the little daily things. So that means in the traffic, eating some of the great food that's out there, noticing butterflies or dragonflies or the heat or whatever. And then how do we go back within and use our life as an example? Standing on the frontier, shifting from why me, by me, through me, as me. Continuously just hoping to be better than we were yesterday. More kind, more loving. Do you look in situations and realize that spirit's in there, maybe like nudging you, like, time for you to do something, Therese? To be what this person you may be in relationship with, or it may be just a conversation, it could be just, again, at the public's line, and you're the one who's being called higher to be that presence. Because we're always the presence, but are we always being the presence? And sometimes it sounds like we're just playing with words, but it's really about shifting the consciousness and then getting from our head to our heart and being calm. Someone said to me this week, what I've been enjoyed watching over the last year is how Michelangelo's version of Therese is being chipped away at. as I let things go and things that no longer serve me and all that, then what's emerging is a Therese in a different and a more profound way. She's very creative. And so I thought, oh, but isn't that what we learn about Michelangelo? I didn't create David. I just took away all the things that weren't him. And out came the statue. So every day, how are you doing that? How are you reminding, rethinking, and getting to be that? So how do we even do those things? If we want to really know we're going to be in vessel consciousness. So we get to listen to our own thoughts, certainly whatever anybody else might be saying, and discern, I'm going to follow this guidance, or nope, I don't think I'm going to follow that. But thanks for sharing. Because some people give you guidance, don't they? And you're like, I don't think that's for me. And maybe you don't have to do all the facial things and put your hands up, but maybe you're like, thanks for sharing. And then don't do it. Follow your gut. That's what it's about. And then as you make these changes in your life, observe. Well, that went really well. Ooh, that didn't work at all. And then the shift happens again. Shift happens again. Or the other word happens again, right? You have to be careful how you listen. So here's what Walter Starkey says. 1,000 people may say they know who you are, but each has a different picture of who you are. Some similar, but all are different. You ever had that conversation with somebody? What picture do you have of yourself? Because that's the only one that matters. And it's almost impossible, he says, for any of us to really know how we look to another. So some of the work we do in a ministerial level or in corporate levels is to say, hey, this is how I see myself. Is this how you see me? And when someone says no, you go, oh. But it's a learning. The way we can picture ourselves is to stand aside as though we were someone else viewing ourselves. And that's what Robert Brummett says, finding yourself in transition. How often are you the witness self when you're in a situation? How often are you quiet so that you can actually hear besides just listen to somebody else? And how often do you stand knowing that you are the one that makes a difference? And that we are stepping beyond religion. And your lives are making a difference in those lives that share your one life. And is it okay that you and I are one? And if it's not, then we have to figure out how to make it okay. Because that's all we have is each other, expressing as ourselves. Let us pray. Living, loving presence, thank you for this day of celebration, for this divine appointment kept by all of these souls manifesting as great-looking bodies this morning. Thank you for having your way in and through us so that we shift from by me to as me. Thank you for the honor of being you in this world. And as often as necessary, remind us through our friends and through the things that we read and our loved ones that we are brilliant and magnificent, excellent, courageous, brave, gorgeous. We are the expression of you. And for this gift and all of our blessings, we are grateful. Amen.